Welcome everyone. Thank you for the invite again to do this one, and due to do another one tomorrow on risk assessments. So if we, just to start this, food retail, this is the focus on. So it will look at both sides of it, sort of from a food safety point of view, because businesses have been shut down for several weeks now, and also from a sort of customer and staff safety point of view. So some pre-opening actions then, some planning that needs to be in place now if you've not already started it. Carry out a COVID-19 risk assessment. The HSE and the government have asked that every business does that. And again, I'll go more into that. I'll touch on the things here, but I'll go more into that process of risk assessment in tomorrow's session. Who's the responsible person, or the FBO, the food business operator? They need to be identified. So who's going to take the lead on these actions before you open and once you are open? Might be two different people, but somebody's name has to be at the top of the list. Who are the startup team? And I'll talk about who from a people point of view, your staffing point of view, a little bit later on. Things that you'll need to review and update. So your asset management system, you'll need to go pick through that and highlight anything that's changed and what you are changing. If you use the Safe Food Better Business, that's great, because you can just follow that format that's already there and update it and see what's different. Thinking about your menus, you know, what is going to be your food offer when you open. Will that change your allergen matrix? You'll need to update that, and how you're going to give that your customers that new information and removing any old information, so there's no confusion in particular around allergens. Cleaning schedules, start planning those now. They must be comprehensive, they must be itemised, and really in detail itemised, because if we miss things, you know, COVID-19 can creep in. So put together a specification of what needs to be cleaned, how it needs to be cleaned, and with what. So thinking about equipment and chemicals. So from equipment wise, anything that was left pre-lockdown will need to go through a 90-degree wash, I would suggest. Anything that you reuse, your reusable cloths, whether that's mop heads or discarded, start again from fresh. Chemicals, if you've left chemicals diluted before lockdown, they need to be discarded because they won't be viable and won't work. And from a food safety standard of disinfectant and sanitizer, they need to be the EN 1276 or 1467 standard. And do take into account your contact time, because if you don't get that right, it will be useless and won't do its job. Some other things to think about then. Legionella, I've mentioned this in the last session, I've mentioned it in every session I've done for everybody. Legionella is a real concern to the HSE, because water systems have been sat stagnant for 3 months and in perfect conditions for the for Legionella to grow. Legionella is a serious disease, bacteria, and causes pneumonia-like symptoms, and it's transmitted through spray and water droplets. So you must understand how your water system works, whether you've got tanks or whatever it is. But every business that's been shut down for all these weeks is likely to have Legionella in its taps, in its pipes. So even taking into account your dishwashers, ice machines, anything like that, you're going to have to flush the systems and disinfect them. And you flushing, there's a specific way of doing it. If you're tenanted and you've got landlords, speak to your landlords about it, because I would suspect they would want to do that. What you must not do is go in and put all your taps on full, because of that spray contamination. You could infect people with Legionella. So I would look up some more details. I've got a leaflet that I can send round as well with advice on what to do. It is recommended that you get specialists in for it, though, because of the severity of it. Also thinking about your fire alarms and your fire safety checks, checking all your doors work, testing your call points, making sure your exit doors are clear from the outside, and just testing your alarm generally. Pest control checks, you know, they've had time to get in, work the way in, so go round with a torch, or get your specialists in, get your licensed pest controllers in to make sure that every area is checked, and corners and dark areas. Waste removal, checking that your waste removal contractor is still operating, and they may have changed the days because they might be on reduced staff because of sickness. So that's something to chase up and get that in place before you open. Thinking about suppliers, who are all your suppliers? Food, non-food, chemicals. You know, have food products change that will affect your menu and affect your allergens, and your non-food as well side of things. Your disposables, could be your PPE. Servicing and maintenance contracts, you know, they may have gone out of date while we've been in lockdown. So just review those and see what's overdue, or what you might want to do as an opening. It could be your gas checks. You might want to just double check that those are all as they should be. And then first aid provisions, making sure that they're up to speed and you've got what's necessary in your first aid provision, and thinking about who your first aiders are and what they are willing to do. We mentioned this in the last session. If somebody falls ill with suspected COVID-19 symptoms, how are you going to manage that eventuality? So something else to think about. Moving on to then some other practical measures. So your refrigeration, I'm hoping that everybody left the fridges empty and with the doors open. Otherwise, good luck with that, opening those. They'll all need cleaning and disinfecting inside and out. Don't forget your door seals, your handles. Give them a good 24 hours once you switch them back on to get the temperatures down, and then make sure you're doing your temperature checks as well. And don't rely on displays because they're rarely that accurate. So you want the temperature of the fridge itself inside. Temperature probes, calibrate those. Wipes, any wipes that were left, check that they're still viable, that they've not dried out. If in doubt, get a new pack. Freezers, again, temperature checks, you want to be checking that they're okay. The stock that you may have left in your freezers, if it's home freezing, then it may be out of date if you've put a 3-month date on it. So you're going to have to go through all your stock. If it's stock that's coming already frozen, again, you're going to have to check your dates, because you might have out-of-date stock in there by now that normally you would have used. So don't get caught out by dates and labelling, because that's something that the AHO are really hot on. So you're going to have to review everything. If there's things that can come out of your freezer to be used on your first week's menus or your first few days' menus, all great. But don't forget about it's got to be accurate labelling and with its use by date as well. And then dry stores, same again, cleaning and disinfectant, walls, ceilings, corners, edges and ledges. And again, checking your dates and your quality checks. If you've left, I don't know whether it's flour open or packets open, are they still viable? Are they still within their once opened, used before dates? If they're not, discard them. If they are, you might need to relabel because you might have put a 3-month date on them. Other things then to think about, cleaning and disinfecting. So you're going to have to do the whole property, front of house, tables, chairs, salt, peppers, condiments, bars, cellars, ice machines I've mentioned, toilets, bottles, jars, stairs, banisters, door plates, door handles, any keypads you've got. Basically walk the land and make sure that everything's captured on that cleaning schedule. It might also be a good idea to take photos of areas. That might help with capturing all areas so that they can be ticked off or added to a cleaning schedule and ticked off as well. Who, just going back to who then, which is a really key thing, you know, who are you asking to come back to work? Are they willing? Are they able? Do they feel safe? Are they fit to work? So maybe some, you know, issuing pre-return health questionnaires, and also an agreement to report any COVID-19 symptoms immediately. How will they get to work safely? Well, from today, people have got to wear masks on public transport, so you're going to have to ask the question, how are you getting to work if they're not driving or cycling? If you decide to issue masks, make sure that they are a P3 standard, so that's the maximum filtration that's recommended. And make sure your staff sign for them as well, so they can't say they didn't have them. Think about what work they will do. Are you going to put people in small teams that are allowed to work together? You know, small regular teams. Are they going to work in a rota system? You know, AM, PM. Are they going to do short hours? Whatever. There's a few things to think about there, and what people will do. How will they stay safe at work? Well, that's going to be all part of what comes next, and how you arrange your business to make sure that it's safe for not just the customers, for your staff as well. And how will they keep customers safe on your behalf? You know, there's lots of different things, but if you go back to what we call the 3 C's, communication, so speaking with your staff, you know, being in the premises, talking it through, how can we make this happen? What happens if this comes up? So you've captured as much as you can, and then coordination and cooperation you will end up with from the first 2. So ideally, you've got a good plan in place. It's never going to be set in stone because we're dealing with people and the general public. So, but you've got a good starting point rather than anything being a shock. Once you've decided how you're going to do things, you're going to have to train your staff. So training them in the new systems, whether it's customer service or allowing customers in and everything else, what your menus are, your allergens, and of course hand washing. So just reminders and refreshers as well. And there's a great NHS video on hand washing that I'd recommend you go through with your staff and ask them to view that as well. So opening up then some controls, you know, I think it's very good practice now to have sanitizer at the front door and the back door for people coming in and out, because if you capture it at the front door and people have sanitized their hands, you're less likely to be bringing it into the building. So I think that's a good practice. And there's some that you can just pin on the wall, and some are automatic as well. So again, there's no need for people to be touching them. They just put the hand underneath, and they're very cost effective. Reduce menu. You know, I don't think anybody will be expecting businesses to open up with their usual full menu. I think that's just too much to ask, unless you do have a small menu in the first place. Front and back of house, so safe working, again, talking about these small teams and trying not to allow them to, you know, front of house to go in the kitchen and vice versa. So whatever system you come up with, that it works and it's safe for people. So you're limiting the crossover of people as much as you can. Small regular teams I've mentioned with, and asking them who, and thinking about it yourself, who are your best teams that will really make this happen for you in the safest way. Deciding on what your maximum customer numbers are for your site. You know, I don't know if maybe it was maximum of 50, that might come down to 25 depending on your layout. Contact between customers and staff is important as well. What the interaction is going to be like. Are you going to ask your staff to wear masks? I suspect they might want to at this stage, but it's going to. If you decide that staff have to wear masks, then staff have to wear masks. You take that choice away from them. So thinking about booking system, so nobody can just walk in off the street. That would make sense. Can you offer a self-serve? But then, do you want people moving about? Do you want to try and limit people moving about in your premises as much as possible? Once you've sat them down, you want them to stay sat. But you might offer a collection service, so how can you separate that from your sitting customers? Thinking about entering and leaving, are you going to post a door monitor on to advise people just to wait a few minutes because we're just waiting for somebody to come out? You know, somebody with great communication skills who can say everything with a smile on the face. And if you've got outside space, utilising that as well, because that will help to increase your covers that you can serve, which is good. But again, this spacing comes into it. So barriers may help if appropriate. One-way systems, that might work in the kitchen, depending on the size of your kitchen. It might work front of house. 2 metre distancing is still there at the moment. We're hoping it reduces to 1 metre because that will make a massive difference to the hospitality industry. But at the moment, it's still there, so you must work to that. And then signage, and making sure that the signage is big, bright and bold so there can be no misunderstanding of what's being asked to people. And then on the control side, we always say PPE is last. But in these circumstances, as long as you're doing a mix of all the other things that I've said, PPE is absolutely acceptable in these circumstances. So moving on then, finally, don't forget about, because I'm health and safety as well, I've mentioned fire checks, making sure your exits are clear and you've got a clear system in place for emergency evacuation. Checking your assembly point is still viable and people can keep the 2 metres apart. They've got the space to do that now at the assembly point. Slip, trips and falls. If you're going to be moving furniture, you know, make sure you're not creating any further hazards. And where the furniture's going, where are you going to store this spare furniture for now? First aid I've mentioned, and manual handling. Again, if you've got staff moving things around, they might need a refresher on the manual handling. And then from a chemical side, making sure that your staff are protected, that they've got the right PPE. You know, if they're cleaning fryers and with degreaser, making sure they've got gauntlets if they're using corrosive equipment rather than just your rubber gloves. So gauntlets that go further up the arm, whatever the guidance says, whatever your cost risk assessment says. And one thing, can you see my pointer? Yeah, this one. What I would be cautious of with this one is how much disinfectant and sanitizer you're throwing around. Make sure wherever they're cleaning, it's well ventilated, because people are liable to go over the top, aren't they, with it? So just be mindful of that one, that wherever they're cleaning and sanitizing and disinfecting, that it's well ventilated. So you don't want people overcome by fumes. Record everything as you go along. You'll have your plan in place, you'll have your cleaning schedules, make sure that they get signed off as done, so you've got a comprehensive record of what you did. Health and safety, COVID-19 and food safety. Heaven forbid you don't want to lose your level 5 rating. There's a poster that the HSC have produced there. That should be displayed on your door or in a window so it's prominent. So it needs signing off and dating. Lisa's got a copy of that and she can send that round to everybody. And then, as I said in the last one, just bear in mind that what you're asked to do is everything that's reasonably practicable. And that's pretty much what I've mentioned. Everyone's got a duty of care, so not just the business owner, not just the staff, your customers have as well, for themselves and others. And anyone coming into your restaurants or your premises must know the 2 metre distance rule. I can't imagine anybody not knowing that. So in those respects, we do have an expectation of people's behaviour, but it can't be taken for granted because people are relaxing already, as we've seen. So that's it from me. I hope that was comprehensive. Tried not to make it too lengthy, just as I said, the salient points really for you to think of. So if there's some questions, we can take those. I should just stop sharing my screen. Hello, everyone. So how was that? Is everybody muted now? Oh,
No,
yeah.
it was good, thank you.
Yeah, good. And anything stands out to you?
I think most of the stuff was pretty practical stuff that we'd be using before COVID-19 and just taking it a bit more careful. I think the Legionnaires Disease was a good thing to point out.
Yeah.
Obviously, systems not being used for all that time.
Yes, yeah, that is a key one. I think that is still the unknown to quite a few people, but it's on the front page of the HSE site, and what they're actually advocating that it's a specialist thing. Now you can flush your own system gently. And capture it basically anywhere where there's water. For your dishwashers, you run them if you run them through a cycle, they'll be running through an 82 degrees plus cycle anyway, and that's enough to kill Legionnaires. And as long as it's got a closed hood on it, that's absolutely fine. But it's just thinking about anywhere where there's water and pipe work.
Of my landlord's on the line there, I can see in the other corner. He can take that back.
Yeah.
Funny if I've written that one down, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the stuff we've already sent it or started sending out to the pubs. But ice machines is the other one as well, isn't it? It's stuff like that which have been hibernating now for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's good practice, but I've written it down, and certainly that's on the documentation we've been sending out to our tenants about the Legionella bit. But really helpful, that show. It just gets you thinking, doesn't it? I think that's what it was all about.
Yeah, I think the key thing is the planning now. You've got some time. What are we? 3 weeks, just about. If 5th of July goes ahead, a lot can be done in the background, can't it? So you've got a plan in place that you can then say, right, that's done, and assigning people as well, assigning the right people. Yeah, good. From the Legionella, just the ideal temperatures are 20 to 42. So with your temperature probes, once you've calibrated those and you've done your flush system, you can make sure your cold water's cold and your hot water is above. Your hot water should be running around 60 anyway. That's what's recommended. So you can test that yourselves once you've done the flushing. Hi, Gareth.
Cool.
Hi, yeah.
Yes, fine, thank you. And you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. I mean, a lot of that, obviously, we don't do the food and things. A lot of it's not so much with us, but it was, some stuff there to think about, so it's good.
Yeah, good. And what about outdoor space? How's that going to affect you, Tony?
Me personally, my garden's only small. Thanks for asking. No, a lot of the pubs have got outside. I mean, I've been to 3 or 4 pubs this morning, and they are looking at utilising the space they've got. Whether it's changing the car parks and putting some benches out in the car parks. Jeff, who's on here as well, Jeff's got a great outside space anyway, which he's always had. But again, being there this morning, he's given it a bit of a rethink and how I can maximise the opportunity. So, although we are beholden to the weather, aren't we? I think that's the one which we just had here in Stockport today. A deluge, haven't we? But
have you?
A lot of the rules are going to be similar, aren't they? You still want your sanitising stations outside. You're still going to have your distancing, whatever it ends up being. But it's just be mindful. I think the secret is to get the whole team on board with your risk assessment so everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah, and bearing in mind, when you're planning your tables, whether they're indoor or outdoor, you can have people back to back. So if you've got a table of 4, and that might increase now to 6, as people are allowed, the numbers are increasing, you can have them back to back with another table. Because that's almost the safest way, other than the 2 metre. So the 2 metre is about face to face, but back to back, you can have them closer. Where it becomes tricky is just the movement of people, sitting people down as others are leaving.
Well, it's your pinch points, isn't it? That's the big thing to look at, and it's managing them people as they come in. Yes. But I think people now know your 2 metres. They know the rules. You can only do your best you can to enforce it, I think. And you've got to be seen to be doing it. Like I said, displaying the signs at the front door, sanitize the station throughout. But I think luckily a lot of people have got it through their heads now, haven't they? How we need to be working this through.
Yeah,
you're
well,
right,
you'd
Tony.
hope so.
The bit of GDPR, Tony. You've got to be seen to be doing your best. That's the main thing.
Yeah, it's the secret. Do what you can.
Yeah, And it's evidence in everything, isn't it? And that's where this planning comes into it now, because once you get going, then you literally just signing things off as they're done, because your plan's already in place. One of the sticking points might be your toilets. So are you going to have a member of staff going into your toilets every time somebody's used them? Because we know we can't trust people to wash their hands. So that's something to think about, or they're on a regular rotation. So whereas it might have been every 2 hours, we'll go and check the toilets. Now it might be every hour.
Yeah.
And a member of staff goes in with the gloves on and wipes, flushes and taps and anything.
We're working on a private bookings only to start with. So
for toilets?
Down in between private booking.
Was that for toilets? Tony said.
Yeah.
But it's something to manage, isn't it? How many you allow in your toilets?
Yeah.
Well,
that's going to be a big challenge, that. And all the guidance is great and helpful, but what we've seen with the supermarkets and B&Qs and that's before you put alcohol in the mix. We're talking about people now that haven't been out for a while, and that the biggest challenge I think that my licensees are going to have is managing that when they've got beer inside them. It's easy to sit outside B&Q on a Monday afternoon when it's really hot and warm, but a few pints of beer inside them, and social distancing is going to become a challenge. And I think we need the guidance to say, because people running pubs can't police it, they can only do so much.
Yeah. How does that leave the licensee responsibility? Do you tighten the rate? I know I'm a licensee. There's a level of responsibility anyway for how much people drink. Is there a possibility that licensees can enforce tighten that rule themselves?
I think they can do. I mean, Jeff's probably better placed than me to answer that and think about that one, but I don't know. I mean, you just don't know, do you? It's like you say, it's the hospitality industry. It's all about going out and having fun, isn't it? And as I said earlier on, the hardest thing is about not shaking people's hands at the moment, and that's going to be the same in the pubs. And you get groups of 8 or 6 and 8 we were chatting about a minute ago. Who's to say if they are connected or not connected? We will get there with it. We will come through this. It's just at the moment everybody's firing questions and none of us have quite got the answers yet.
I think from policing, you've just mentioned something there about, if you've got 2 groups coming together as a family, let's say, haven't seen each other, hopefully they have by now, and they shake hands, that's up to them, isn't it?
Absolutely. Nothing you can do about it.
That's up to them.
You can't go and ask every table, are you sharing a house, are you in a family? And
no.
Whether that's a restaurant, a pub, a hairdresser's, whatever. It's one of those, isn't it?
Yeah.
Common sense is going to have to come into this. Common sense has got to come into this somewhere on the line.
Absolutely. And I think it's unfair to ask staff to police to that level. And going back to the duty of care, there's a level of behaviour that's expected from your customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even before this, but even more so now.
Paul, did I see you'd sent some stuff out to the businesses in town about social distancing and stuff like that?
We've got these packs. We've got our starter packs, which a lot of them, we've got some at the office, but we've just done some again this morning. So in the starter packs, there's tape, hand sanitizer, wipes, stickers, posters, and a manual. So if you need some of those for anybody, then just give us a shout. Lisa will be there at some point this week as well, won't you? Yeah. Or just let us know who wants them and we'll put them on a list and we'll try and get them dropped off.
So are they just being sent direct to the businesses, are they?
We're just dropping them in. Yeah.
Drop them in, yeah.
I got one the other day. It's really good. It's great.
Oh, you got one of you, Fab.
Yeah, excellent. It is, I think, anything that helps put some sort of order into what needs to be done. It's got to be a benefit. So it's great that. Yeah, great to see.